Sinister images revealed. Citizen scientists uncover cursed secrets of Mars before web shutdown. Angela could hardly keep her eyes peeled open as her shift at the Tampa hospital finished. Exhaustion gripped her bones, but the frantic buzz surrounding the latest discoveries from Mars clawed at her curiosity. Everyone in the neighborhood was talking about its bizarre geometric patterns, eerie shadows from the red planet. The images reverberated on social media, drawing her in like a moth to a flame. But as she glanced at her phone, flashes of strange symbols from the neighbor's backyard sent chills down her spine. "Jake, you see those pictures?" she asked, her hands trembling slightly as she poured herself coffee. Her 16-year-old son gave her a distracted nod. Under his breath, he mumbled phrases that sent a cold shiver through her, words heavy with an ancient weight. His glazed eyes darted like lightning, and his once cheerful demeanor seemed shadowed by something sinister. "Just interesting stuff, Mom. Nothing to worry about," he assured her, the words holding a strange, otherworldly cadence. But Angela felt a tightening in her chest as she turned toward Lily, her 8-year-old daughter, who was blissfully drawing inside the living room. She had always worried when her kids went too far into their imaginations, and today was no different. The photographs felt less like science and more like an omen. "You're all acting weird. It's just Mars," Angela responded, half laughing, but no one joined her. Jake kept repeating those odd phrases, his expression growing more vacant as the days passed. With every passing hour, a tempest brewed in their home, rattling the peace of their suburban life. Hours later, she felt the shadows creep in further. Lily had come home from playing outside. Angela's heart raced as she whipped open the door to find her daughter no longer giggling beside the neighbor's yard, just silence enveloping her like an unwelcome visitor. The house next door, once a fixture of safety, echoed with sinister whispers. "Lily!" she shouted, the fear clawing at her throat. But the heavy quiet swallowed her voice whole. Angela rushed to the neighbor's door, but the man, known for his past work in aerospace engineering, merely peered out with pitying eyes. "Just let kids be kids," he smirked, dismissing her wild worries. Angela felt her stomach twist as she half turned away, panic rising like bile. With every step she took down the street, the shadows around him seemed to pulse, growing darker, weaving terrible narratives into the quiet. Jake was waiting for her when she returned home, muttering that strange dialect again, more frantic now. His eyes glimmered with something unreachable. "You don't understand, Mom, you have to trust me." The tension was palpable. The vibrant colors of their suburban world dimmed, surrendering to a creeping dread. The cracks in her family began to deepen. The warmth dimmed around them, as rumors circled about missing children, panic blooming in whispers among neighbors. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. With a heart that pounded like thunder, Angela shuffled through Jake's backpack and discovered a handwritten note that read, "If you want to find Lily, you must understand the truth." The urgency burned in her veins as she processed the implication, the veil of normalcy slipping. She felt the warm gust of desperation fade into a chilling breeze as night fell. What truth? What had Jake become? And what lay waiting in the shadows of their neighbor's house, just beyond the line of safety drawn in her mind? The haunting allure of the unknown tugged her toward the darkness, where answers waited, and dread blossomed. Would she find her daughter before it consumed them all? The night wrapped around Angela like a suffocating blanket, thick with anxiety and uncertainty. She couldn't shake off the feeling that danger slithered just out of sight, lurking among the shadows of her once familiar neighborhood. Jake's odd behavior rattled her. It was as if he was channeling something ancient and terrifying. The rhythmic muttering of those unrecognizable words played in her mind, like a dark incantation that tightened its grip around her heart. "Mom!" Jake's voice broke through the silence, a wild plea drenched in desperation. "You have to see this." Her breath hitched in her throat, fear flushing her face as she turned to face him. He stood in the dimly lit hallway, his phone glowing ominously in his hands. The light cast long shadows on his face, making him appear both adult and child. "What is it, Jake?" she asked, forcing the words through clenched teeth, while her gut twisted in apprehension. "Look!" He thrust his phone at her, revealing a series of unsettling images. Each one seemed to pulsate with energy, geometric shapes that spiraled into darkness, each frame more haunting than the last. "I found them in the code of the Mars images. It's all connected." Angela stared, her mind racing. "Connected? To what? What are you talking about?" "The symbols, they're a doorway. They lead back to Lily. I think I can unravel the truth, Mom." His voice climbed in pitch, the excitement mingling with fear, and her heart sank like a stone. "But at what cost?" she whispered, biting back the terror that clawed at her. She realized the truth danced just out of reach, teasing her, but the warmth of hope chilled as quickly as it sparked. "Don't you see?" he continued, his voice dropping to an almost sinister tone. "We have to trust the ancient knowledge they unlocked. It tells us how to find her." His eyes flickered with a light that felt all wrong, a wild tempest of desperation. "What if it's too late?" Angela murmured, but Jake didn't seem to hear her. His focus was directed somewhere beyond the living room, eyes darting toward the neighbor's house as if it were a black hole drawing him in. Suddenly, a knock echoed through the house, hollow and deliberate. Angela jumped, the sound reverberating deep in her bones. She exchanged a glance with Jake. His face had drained of color, as if the very air had turned to ice. "Who could that be?" she asked, dread wrapping around her like a vice. "Don't answer it," he urged, the urgency in his voice rising again. "It might be them." "They?" she repeated, feeling her pulse quicken. The word hung in the air, heavy and foreboding. It was then that she heard another knock, followed by the creak of the doors shifting slightly as if pushed by an unseen force. Angela moved toward the door, drawn to the unknown. Was it the neighbor? Was it Lily? The question pounded in her mind, drowning out her instincts screaming for her to retreat. She hesitated, her hand hovering above the door handle, barely breathing. "Mom, don't!" Jake cried, but the sound of her own heartbeat drowned him out. She grasped the handle, twisting it slowly as the door creaked open with an ominous groan. "Help us, Angela," a voice slithered in from beyond, moist and rich with 1,000 whispers. Not just one voice, but many inflected in fear, desperation, and something else, something darker. They were in unison, beckoning with nightmarish familiarity. She felt herself being pulled into a dark dance that spiraled out of control as horror wrapped around her heart, squeezing tighter. Then she noticed the shadows darting behind them, figures moving in the darkness, their outlines indistinct but unmistakably there. The door swung wide, and her world faded to black. The chilling echo of another lost soul reverberated in her mind. What truth had Jake awakened? And who were the entities hiding in the dark? Now the real terror began, and time was slipping away. Angela's senses were engulfed in darkness, and every instinct screamed at her to run. She blinked, but no light came. No sounds. Just an oppressive weight pressing against her, as if the dark itself had substance. She couldn't feel Jake near her anymore. "Mom?" His voice pierced through the shroud, but it sounded distorted, like it was filtered through water. A panic surged within her, forcing her feet into motion as she staggered forward. As thin tendrils of fog clawed at her ankles, she called out, "Jake! Where are you?" Her heart raced as silence answered her. Forcing herself to breathe, she focused. "Jake! Please!" The whispers swirled around her, a chorus of murmurs, growing louder, more insistent. "Follow us, find her, open the door." Each syllable seemed to scrape against her sanity. They felt familiar but twisted, as if they belonged to lives long lost and forgotten. Then, suddenly, light blinding and warm flared back into existence. Angela stumbled backward, shielding her eyes from the brilliance. When she dared to look again, she was outside, standing on the cracked pavement of her driveway. The night sky rumbled above her, thick clouds closing in like a hungry maw. "Jake!" she shouted again, scanning her surroundings. The neighborhood, once vibrant and filled with life, now lay eerily quiet. Homes stood dark like sentinels. Shadows flickered in the corners of her vision, teasing at her mind, making her heart race with dread. Light from her porch lamp cast a small, comforting glow, but its warmth was soon swallowed by the growing chill, bringing goosebumps alive on her skin. "Angela!" came that same haunting voice, echoed eerily from the corner of the street. Footsteps crunched through leaves, scraping their way toward her. She felt herself drawn again, against her will, toward the street. "Stay back!" she shouted, but her voice quivered. It was a command but sounded more like a plea. Out from the shadows stepped a figure, familiar yet alien. Jake stood there, his eyes wide, pupils dilated in a way that overshadowed their usual color. The phone still clutched in his hand, illuminating the edges of his face, casting shadows deep along his cheeks. "What did you do?" she breathed, stepping forward despite herself. "What did you unlock?" His lips curled into a smile that held no warmth, only a chasm of coldness that made her stomach churn. "I found the way, Mom. The symbols show us the truth." With a trembling hand, he pointed behind her. Angela turned, dread twisting like a knife in her gut. Shadows were coalescing around the houses like thick smoke, inching toward her, hungry eyes glinting from within the void. The ground shuddered beneath. "We can bring her back," Jake continued, voice thickening, blending with the whispers echoing in her mind. "She needs to come home." "No!" Angela cried out, backing away. Her breath came in ragged pulls as she shook her head, trying to deny the darkness creeping in. "I want to lose you too. Join us." The murmurs wrapped around her, urging her to take a step forward. "Join us, Angela." They invaded her mind like a malicious fog. The shadows surged closer, dense and dark, and the whispering intensified. Then Jake lifted the phone, and a flicker of light erupted from the screen, casting grotesque shapes against the asphalt. Suddenly, the images from the Mars code projected around them in a swirling panic, the very shapes that drew him in. The air rippled with energy, pulling her toward its vortex, an inscrutable promise. She felt her body twitch, the urge to step into the chaos blinking within her. "Mom!" Jake called, his voice lower now, tinged with something sinister. "You have to trust me." "Trust you?" she hissed, fear slamming against her chest. "After everything?" But doubt flooded her mind, and she felt the ground cracking beneath her as the figures began to manifest, drawing near with malicious intent. In that moment, the truth threatened to break free, and Angela realized the choice lay before her, one that could chain her to darkness or free her. Then, abruptly, everything stopped. The air stilled and an ominous silence took hold, as time seemed to freeze. The figures hung behind Jake, watching, waiting. As she felt the pull intensify, she suddenly came to a decision. "No!" she shouted, her voice booming against the night sky, resonating with newfound strength. The shadows recoiled, and for the first time, she felt a flicker of light fighting back. But would it be enough to sever that haunting bond? Would they allow her to return to safety, or would they drag her back into the abyss? As the ground trembled once more, Angela's heart raced with the knowledge that the choice loomed ahead. The time for decisions was close, and the darkness was hungry. Angela felt the weight of silence crash over her like a leaden fog. The shadows behind Jake pulsed, alive with malice and intent. Each breath she took clawed at her throat, thick with a sense of dread. The very air buzzed with energy, vibrating against her skin as the whispers started again, now crescendoing into a terrifying symphony of voices. Choose, choose. She could feel the darkness reaching for her, probing and prodding, testing the strength of her resolve. Heart hammering loudly in her chest, Angela twisted back to Jake, searching for his eyes, hoping to find some trace of the sun she knew beneath the growing abyss. But that glimmer was fading fast. He seemed locked in a trance, a puppet dancing to the sinister tune of the shadows encircling them. "Jake, listen to me," she pleaded, voice trembling. The whispers quieted for a moment, as if the darkness itself paused to assess her words. You need to fight it. This isn't the way. It's not the truth, it's a trap. But Jake's smile only grew wider, teeth unnaturally white against the murky blackness that swallowed the neighborhood. The door is open, Mom. We can bring her back. We just need to step inside. Angela's pulse quickened as she glanced over her shoulder, where shadows now writhed and twisted like serpents hungry for their next victim. They pulsed and flickered, shifting into grotesque shapes that seemed to dart in and out of her vision. Panic engulfed her like a tidal wave, but she couldn't afford to drown. You're all I have left, Jake, she cried, slashing her hand through the air to dispel the encroaching darkness. Whatever is happening here, whatever you found, it's not worth your life. We can find another way. Jake's eyes darkened as if clouds passed before the moon. But this is the only way. Can't you see? You're the one holding us back. The words rolled off his tongue like a poison. The shadows twitched, inching closer, their hungry eyes gleaming with malice. Anxiety threatened to consume her, but Angela held her ground. A memory rushed through her, a flicker from the past. She clenched her fists. Remember when I told you about the legend of the dark woods? She started, her voice gaining strength. The stories of those who got lost, how their minds twisted and turned against them. They had to face what they feared most to escape. You taught me that courage is facing the darkness. A flicker of recognition sparked in Jake's expression. For a brief moment, the shadows trembled, recoiling from her words as if they could feel the truth. Together, we can face this, she yelled, determination seeping into her tone. Not just you, but us. We'll find her, we'll drive it away. Suddenly, the ground beneath her feet split wide open, a chasm of darkness appearing, pulling at her very essence. Angela fell back, her vision blurring as she grasped for any solid ground. The otherworldly whispers crescendoed, drowning her out. Join us with a gasp, she looked back at Jake, desperation written across her features. You can still choose. Shadows lurked closer, edging in as the rift widened, revealing a swirling void that threatened to consume everything. Jake's gaze flickered for just a heartbeat, fighting against the tide of darkness, but then it vanished. Anger surged within her. Jake, lift the phone, she screamed. You have the power to end this. In that instant, reality warped, twisting around her as if threading the fabric of the very universe. She felt both invisible chains and blazing light pull her in two directions. The shadows roared, furious at her defiance. Would she be strong enough? Would her words be enough to break through? As the darkness surged forward, ready to swallow her whole, the air thickened with an unmistakable energy, an essence that felt alive. Everything seemed to hinge on this final moment, the choice she had to make, the true power of choice itself. Then the shadows roared. Jake's scream echoed across the void as the phone's screen flickered to life again, revealing disturbing images beneath the chaos. What secrets lay hidden? What horrors awaited? Could she unlock them without losing everything? With a chilling certainty, Angela stood at the edge, heart racing, knowing the abyss was closer than ever before. The abyss breathed, a chilling sigh that wrapped around Angela's mind. Shadows whispered, relentless, urging her to abandon hope. She leaned forward, desperate to glimpse what lay in the murky light of the phone. Jake's scream echoed still, a haunting wail that seemed to draw the shadows ever closer. Rushing shadows clawed at her, furious at her defiance, hungry for the light she desperately clung to. Angela, heart pounding, stumbled toward the phone, her hand brushing over the glowing screen. Images flashed, twisted faces, grotesque figures caught in a dance of despair. Wails filled her ears, real and unreal, as if the shadows were manifesting her worst fears. Stop! She cried, both to the images and the darkness closing in. You don't control us. But the darkness laughed, a sound that crawled beneath her skin. It was a mocking sound, filled with twisted glee that sent shivers racing down her spine. She felt the weight of malevolence press against her like a physical force, every whisper a taunt. Jake stood frozen, his own scream fading into hollow silence. His eyes, once filled with confusion and longing, now lacked any emotion, leaving behind only an empty shell. Terror gripped Angela's chest. "Jake, wake up!" she yelled. "You're stronger than this." The shadows reacted as if struck, swirling around him like storm clouds. An inkling of resistance sparked in his expression, a hint he might be listening. Her heart soared for a brief moment before the darkness flared, responding to her defiance with a furious roar. It fed on her hope, gnashing its teeth with every second. "Join us!" a chorus of voices hissed, rising into a fever pitch. "Embrace the darkness. Only then will you find her." Images flashed brighter on the phone, showing a darkened room filled with mirrors reflecting endless horrors. Each reflection carried a face that twisted, their eyes pleading before imploding into shadows. Angela covered her mouth, already tasting the bitterness of fear rising in her throat. "No! This isn't the way!" she shouted, her voice trembling but steady. "We can create our own destiny. We can find her together." For a heartbeat, the shadows seemed to hesitate, swirling around her as if considering. She took a deep breath and leaned closer to the phone, her body shielding Jake from the encroaching dark. "I am not afraid." Suddenly, another scream shattered the air, a chilling portal of despair that rushed into her mind. She saw glimpses of a familiar face through the chaos, twisted and pained. Home movies played in silent bursts. Joyful laughter, a birthday cake, and a little hand reaching out, only to fade into screams of desperation as shadows devoured the image whole. Mom, Jake's voice dripped with sorrow now, a crack in the armor of the darkness. "I'm scared." In that moment, the ground quaked violently as the rift shifted beneath them. The pulsing energy surged like a surging tide, pressing them both toward the yawning void. Angela seized Jake's hand, pulling him back, grounding herself with every ounce of strength she had. "Remember! You're stronger than this darkness!" she cried, desperation thickening her voice. Tears streamed down her cheeks, mixing despair with fierce determination. "Don't let it win!" The shadows raged in response, beckoning them into the depths of the unknown. An ominous growl emanated from the chasm, almost like a warning. The walls around them trembled, dust falling like dry leaves from ancient trees. Angela sensed their desperation weaving through her, a primal fear wrapping tightly around her heart. Then, in the blinding flicker of light from the phone, she saw a swirling phrase etched upon the screen, shimmering like a warning against all odds. "Ritual of the Nameless." It pulsed with dark energy, a lurking promise and a perilous choice whispering just out of reach. Angela felt its weight like an anchor, binding her to a decision no one should have to face. What had they unleashed? What would it demand of them? They had ventured too far to turn back now, and time felt lost, slipping through their fingers like sand. As the shadows grew close, coiling around her like the grip of an invisible vice, she knew she had to act. Would she dare to open the door of horrifying truths? Angela's heart raced as she clutched Jake's hand tighter, bracing for what came next. Shadows surged, the whispers rising in pitch, and she could feel the dark energy pulsing in time with her own frantic heartbeat. The shadows clamored louder, a deafening cacophony that mingled with Angela's racing thoughts. The phone's light flickered, casting eerie shapes on the walls. Her fingers trembled against the screen as she tried to comprehend the ritual of the Nameless. What had this darkness latched onto? What had they unlocked? "Angela, we have to get out of here." Jake's voice was a mere whisper now, a tremor of fear underlying his trembling words. The shadows slithered closer, and the warmth of his hand turned icy. "No!" Angela snapped back, defiance hardening her resolve. "We can't go until we figure this out. We owe it to everyone." The images danced within the phone, fevered faces begging for release, reaching through the flat screen, straining to connect with the living. With Jake's wandering gaze fixing upon the phone, Angela felt a surge of panic. "Stay with me." She squeezed his hand, trying to tether him to reality. "We need to concentrate. We can turn this against them." As she focused, the swirling darkness pressed in tighter, suffocating her with malevolence. "Release us," the shadows whispered, seductive and persuasive. "Your fears can save you if you only let us in." The phone vibrated, a throbbing pulse against her palm, resonating with the fading echoes of Jake's childhood laughter and the unbearable hush that followed. The memories drowned her: a birthday party, a family gathered, smiling faces. And then darkness had swallowed them whole. "Mom, Dad," Jake murmured, tears brimming in his eyes. They were Jake, don't!" Angela shouted, adrenaline coursing through her like wildfire. "Remember who you are. Remember us." She stared hard at the phone, willing it to reveal something useful. The chaotic images converged into a single, vivid scene: a mirror reflecting a figure cloaked in shadows. It grinned, a chill that echoed through the very marrow of her bones. Behind it lay a gateway, dark and sinister, an invitation, if one dared to approach. "Jake." She pointed, hoping to spark something, anything, within him. "Look! We have to face it. We have to face it together." But instead of engaging with the darkness, it began to spiral away from them. It absorbed her words, the promise of defiance fueling its wrath. A sudden gust rushed through the space, pulling her toward the abyss that awaited just beyond. Angela realized, too late, the depths were winning. The air thickened, charged with static dread. Shadows unfurled like tidal waves, and Jake screamed a raw, primal sound that echoed off the walls of their prison. "Jake!" As she tightened her grip, every ounce of willpower echoed in her heart. Their bond was stronger than terror. She pulled him closer, lifting the phone higher. Maybe, just maybe, the light could chase the shadows away. "Show us your truth!" Angela screamed, her voice a battle cry. "Let us uncover the depths of your lies." In that moment, the screen shattered with brilliance, flooding the room with pulsating light. Shards flew towards the shadows, which howled in agony, recoiling. But within the chaos, a new vision emerged, a fragmented glimpse of the curse binding them. Jake staggered back, tears streaming down his cheeks. What was that?" His breath quickened, almost as if he was awakening from a trance. I think I saw something," Angela replied, tapping at what remained of the shattered glass. "Something we can use. But what if it's worse?" "Worse than what? Being consumed by darkness?" Their exchange froze midair as the shadows amassed into a form. A monstrous silhouette materialized, an echo of despair that seemed to pulsate with them. Angela gasped, horrified. "No more games," it growled, a voice resembling loss itself. "You have opened the door, now you must pay the price." The air thickened, choking them as the shadow lunged forward. Angela's heart thundered, and as the darkness engulfed her vision, she fought against the tremors of fear. What did it want? What would she have to sacrifice to escape this nightmare? Adrenaline coursed through her as she braced for impact, knowing one thing for sure: whatever came next would change everything. She squeezed Jake's hand tighter, terror and determination mingling in her gaze. Would it be their end, or the beginning of a nightmarish truth? The darkness coiled around them, thick and suffocating. Angela could feel its icy grip squeezing tighter, each breath drawing her deeper into its grasp. The shadows whispered, a chorus of lost souls demanding to be heard. "You know us now, Angela. Embrace your fears." Jake stumbled back, his eyes wide with terror. "What do they want from us?" Angela's heart raced, panic tightening her chest. "I don't know," she shouted, but a part of her felt a deep within a gnawing, insatiable dread that lingered in the back of her mind. Suddenly, the monstrous silhouette lunged, a swirling amalgamation of despair and anguish. Claws of onyx reached for them, slashing through the air with a malevolent intensity. Angela whipped the remnants of the shattered phone in front of her like a shield. It flickered uncertainly, its glow a fragile beacon against the encroaching shadows. "Back off!" she cried, her voice a thin veil of hope in the descending darkness. But with every word, more phantoms poured from the tableau. Faces contorted in silent screams hovered just out of reach, eyes pleading, mouths desperate for answers that would never come. The shadows paused, coalescing into a grotesque form. It leaned closer, hypnotic and terrifying, a ragged breath echoing from its unseen mouth. "You wish to understand?" Then images flooded Angela's mind, grotesque snippets of memories too foreign to fathom yet achingly familiar. A child's laughter echoed, twisted into bone-chilling sobs. Friends, family, their faces racked with pain, all drawn into a hellish landscape that mirrored their own worst fears. "This is not just our curse," it hissed. "It's yours." Angela felt bile rise in her throat. "You're lying!" she screamed defiantly. But the terror swelled. They had uncovered a door, and now it swung wide, revealing torment that stretched far beyond their nightmares. Jake's grip slackened. "Angela, what if it's true?" He trembled, eyes darting away from the darkness but drawn back against his will. The light from the phone pulsed, but even that flicker felt inadequate against the crushing tide of despair. "Focus! We have to face this!" Angela shouted, drawing him back. "Whatever darkness we've awakened, we have power over it." But even as she yelled, doubt gnawed at her resolve. What if they weren't strong enough? What if the darkness had already seeped too deep into their minds? The creature laughed, a sound of rusted metal scraping against bone. "You think you can escape? We are a part of you. You have fed us with your very essence. Your fear is our breath." Just then, the shadows thickened into a swirling whirlpool, pulling them in. Angela felt the ground beneath her tremble as if the very structure was surrendering to the weight of despair. They were being drawn down deeper, into a realm of torment where salvation felt impossible. "Angela! Help!" Jake's voice was a high-pitched cry that pierced through her, igniting fierce protective instincts within her. "No!" she yelled, leaning into the pull, fighting against it with every ounce of her being. "We're not done! We can still turn this against them." With a sudden instinct, she pressed her fingers to the shattered phone, praying for any glimpse of light, anything. The screen flared once more, revealing the faces of the lost, their expressions shifting from despair to something almost resembling clarity. "Do you see them? They need us to understand. We can't just run." The shadows writhed, screeching, as if the realization struck a lethal blow. "You must decide live to uncover the truth or succumb to our darkness." What choice would she make? The pressing weight suffocated her, yet a flicker of hope ignited inside Angela. She would not bow down. She clung to Jake as if her life depended on it, because it did. Outside, a storm brewed, thunder rumbling like an ominous warning. She steadied her breath, feeling the pulse of the phone resonate with newfound strength. "We fight together, Jake. We learn, we confront, and we never surrender." But as the shadows lashed out once more, a deafening roar erupted. The air exploded around them, and Angela's world dissolved into chaos. Would the truth be their salvation, or would it drag them further into the depths of oblivion? The fate of their souls hung in the balance, and the real terror was just about to begin. The howl of the storm outside grew into a frenzy, wrapping around Angela and Jake like a living thing. Thunder crashed overhead, rattling the remnants of their sanity, while the shadows writhed and pulsed in discordant rhythm with the storm. An invisible force tugged relentlessly, drawing them deeper into the chaotic darkness, pounding at their minds with images of despair. "Angela! I can't hold on!" Jake's voice echoed, trembling with raw fear, as the darkness slithered around his legs, pulling him further away from her. "No! Stay with me!" She reached for him, her fingers grazing his arm, fighting against the suffocating grip of the shadows. But it was no use. The dark tendrils tightened like a vice, wrapping around Jake, whispering secrets into his ear that made his gaze glaze over. "They know, they understand." Angela's heart sank. She couldn't let him succumb to them. Pushing against the tide, she shouted, "Jake! Fight it! Remember who we are!" Faces erupted around them, swirling like a cyclone of despair, each expression worse than the last. A surprise party gone wrong, a life unlived, dreams shattered. They screamed without sound, writhing and moaning in anguish, a desperate claim for recognition. With a deep breath, fueled by fury, Angela steadied her hand and aimed the phone at the churning shadows. "I will not be your puppet!" she cried, the phone's screen flickering wildly, casting ghostly light over terror-stricken faces. "You're nothing without our fear!" The dark mass recoiled as if struck. "You dare defy us?" it shrieked, undulating with rage. But Angela felt a spark of power growing within her, fueled by the warmth of determination and the memory of brighter days. Yes. I dare. Because fear only gains power when we let it. Bolstered by her words, the phone became a beacon. The faces coalesced, forming a tapestry of pain and struggle. With each revelation, Angela recognized them, the neighbors who had vanished, her childhood friends, family members lost to whispers and myths. Help us, they begged in silent screams, their voices wrapping around her like a warm embrace, then slicing through her heart. I'm sorry. Angela's voice cracked, swallowed by the thunder. I didn't know. Jake shook with renewed strength, catching her spirit as if her words were strands of hope. We can help them. We can set them free. Together they stood, side by side, hearts racing, defiance coursing through their veins. As thunder roared, they raised the phone higher, urging the light to grow. Reveal the truth. Break these chains. The shadows wailed in protest, their forms warping and twisting, trying to claw back at Angela and Jake, but their resolve built an unyielding barrier. Light exploded from the phone, washing over the dark mass, illuminating every hidden face, every whispered secret. No! You will pay! A terrifying crescendo echoed, shaking the very foundations around them. The shadows convulsed, retreating momentarily as the beam of light expanded, forcing back the deep terror coiling around their feet. But as the faces began to free themselves from the anguish, Angela noticed something unsettling, a flicker of recognition in their eyes, a glimmer of truth they had yet to understand. Wait, they've seen something, she gasped, the realization lancing into her heart. What if they're not the only ones? Jake's expression changed, his brows furrowing. What do you mean? Is there more? Before Angela could respond, the whirlwind of darkness hurled itself at them once more, a desperate act of vengeance. The ground trembled beneath them, shaking them back toward oblivion's edge, and a voice cut through the chaos, cold and knowing. Your journey is not over, little light. There are more secrets buried deeper. And just like that, the swirling chaos consumed them, dragging them back into its depths. As their surroundings morphed into nothingness, Angela felt the pull of a sinister force whispering promises coated in dread. What truth lay buried, and would they survive to uncover it? The world around Angela and Jake dissolved, consumed by a thick ominous fog, as the feeling of being dragged through an endless void enveloped them. It felt cold, darker than anything they had experienced. Angela's heart raced. She could barely hear her own breath, drowned by the drumming of her pulse echoing in her ears. Jake! She screamed, panic surfacing in her voice. Where are you? But she didn't receive an answer. The shadows tightened, wrapping around her as they pulled apart. Angela fought against the restraint, her hands clawing at the dark, trying to pull it away. Each scream, each icy tendril zapping against her skin only fueled her resolve. I won't let you take him. We will fight you. The murkiness darkened further, forming grotesque shapes just out of sight. Echoes of whispering voices brushed against her like wind, soft yet sinister, warning her to give in, to let go. Help us, they murmured, sorrow curling through the words. The weight of their torment pressed down, making her look away as the faces of her trapped friends and neighbors swirled in the haze. Each glance brought regret bubbling forth, the burden of their unfulfilled lives hanging over her like a noose. But deep within, she felt something flicker, hope. That tiny spark surged, pushing against the shadows. They need us. Angela shouted, the power of her conviction erupting from her lips, cutting through the oppressive fog. We fight for them. In her mind, she visualized Jake's face, his eyes full of life, and how they fought together against the darkness. Together. We must be together. She felt the energy consuming her, entangling her with the memories of laughter, and dreams shared, a bond unbreakable. As if answering her call, she felt warmth pooling at her fingertips. The phone glimmered back to life, its faded screen flickering to brilliant brightness. This light, it can't be extinguished. She roared, raising it high above her head, illuminating the shadows around her like an angry sun. The darkness shrieked, fiery and furious, howling in fear. The faces twisted with agony, swirling into a tempest, lifting Jake's form momentarily above the chaos. "Angela!" he cried, his eyes wide, filled with terror. "It's too strong." "No!" she countered, gripping the phone tighter. "It thrives on our fear, Jake. We have to confront it." As the shadows thrashed, Angela flicked through her memories, desperately seeking any strength she could find. She seized upon the laughter of friends, the taste of celebration, the warmth of companionship, each thought crystallized in defiance against the encroaching gloom. "Become one with the light," she commanded, her voice now thunderous. And in that moment, a blinding eruption of light erupted from the phone. It exploded outward, washing over every tortured face, each one flickering with recognition, joy, sorrow, hope, but most importantly, understanding. The shadows screamed again, lashing out, their forms rippling in desperation, corrupted by their own malignant fear. "I see you now!" Angela shouted, the brightness building to an unbearable intensity. "Face the truth." But the retching vengefulness of the darkness pulled back, allowing the light a brief moment to pierce through. The faces stopped swirling. They turned, staring at Angela, eyes filled with more than just anguish now. Was that clarity? Could they understand? Then the shadows writhed like a coiled serpent, a sinister hiss emanating from its depths. "You think you've won?" it seethed. "You have not yet seen the worst of it." With that, the light pulsed, illuminating every corner of the dark, momentarily crystallizing their predicament, but it was just as quickly snuffed out. As the darkness closed in again, Angela's voice trembled through the chilling air. "What's coming?" And then silence, thick and suffocating, before the shadows whispered back, "We will reveal what you wish to unearth and more." The air crackled with an unholy promise, and all they could do was brace themselves for the impending revelation that threatened to shatter them all. What truths would emerge in the wake of their battle? What darkness lay waiting, ready to ensnare them once more? Angela's heart raced as the darkness surged towards her, a seething, living entity intent on consuming everything in its path. Fear gripped her throat like a vice, but she wrapped Jake's hand tight in hers, grounding herself in their connection. "We've come too far," she whispered, willing her voice to be steady. "We know the truth is out there. We can't give up now." Jake's face flickered between terror and determination as he nodded, the glint of confusion still dancing in his eyes. The shadows responded, hissing like 1,000 serpents. Yet within their chaotic dance, Angela could see human forms starting to emerge, stepping out from the darkness that encapsulated them. "Shadows from the past," Angela murmured, dread mingling with a spark of hope. She recognized her old friends, neighbors once vibrant, now hollow reflections of themselves. "They need us to break free." She raised the phone, its brightness flickering like a lighthouse in the storm, illuminating the faces that surrounded her. "Remember!" she shouted, her voice echoing off the walls of despair. "We fought for our happiness, for joy and laughter. We fought to be remembered. Yes. Remember the light." Jake joined in, his voice rising against the clamor of despair that threatened to swallow them whole. "We can still find our way back." The very shadows recoiled, sensing the strength of their resolve. As if propelled by an unseen force, the dark mass surged forward again. Shadows clawed at them, desperate to snuff out their light. "Your efforts are futile," the creature growled, swirling around like smoke, mocking them. "You will see your darkest fears unfold." Suddenly, the phone flickered and shuddered, revealing fleeting images of Lily in a bathroom. Laughter turned to fear as she crouched. Tiny hands clapped over her ears against echoing whispers. Angela gasped. "Lily!" "No!" Jake roared, his heart pounding against his ribs. "We can't let them take her too." With renewed vigor, Angela turned back to the darkness. "No more lies. We demand to see the truth." The command burned in her chest as she pressed the phone's screen with her thumb, urging the light to amplify. The vibrant images cascaded like waves, colliding with the dark entities, revealing countless faces entwined in agony, spirits ensnared by the very shadows that haunted them. The apparition writhed in fury. "You dare defy the shadows?" It hissed, voices mixing into a menacing chorus. You will know despair beyond comparison. But Angela felt a shift, the burden of fear loosening with each image of solidarity and compassion that flickered across the screen. No! She shouted, her voice a rallying cry, glittering with defiance. We will turn our pain into strength. Together. As the shadows convulsed violently, Angela's heart surged with adrenaline and determination. She could feel the darkness tangling around her, trying to drag her down, but she fought it. She focused on the love she had for Jake and Lily, on all the beautiful moments they had shared. With each thought, the light from the phone flared brighter, each pulse like a heartbeat pushing back against the encroaching void. Jake stepped forward, taking a breath. Everyone we've lost can find peace if we help them. We're stronger together. Their voices melded into one angry, hopeful, unyielding. The flickering images around them glowed with vibrant colors, weaving through the shadows like a tapestry. The dark entity shrieked again, an unleashing of pure malice echoing through the empty streets. No! You will never escape! But with each word they shouted together, the shadows swelled, and bursts of light pierced through them like bullets. Faces twisted in anguish began to smile, a ripple of hope surging through, entwined in the light. You will not win! Angela cried, sprinting closer to Jake, intertwining their arms, gathering their strength. With one last push, they faced the swirling mass of shadows, hearts aligned. We're stronger than fear! They shouted in unison, their words erupting like fireworks, exploding through the darkness. Light cascaded from the phone, washing over everything, painting the shadows brilliant white. The faces began to dissolve, unearthing long-buried laughter and love as they twisted, light reclaiming its territory. The air crackled, and the darkness howled sorrowfully, twisting violently away, frantically retreating into the inky blackness. Then, radiant brilliance burst forth, washing over everything, a beacon of hope blanketing the once darkened street, illuminating the world with a warmth born from determination and love. Angela blinked, and amidst the sudden quiet, she found herself standing in her once familiar driveway, the vibrant colors of the neighborhood restored around her. Jake stood beside her, panting, eyes wide with bewilderment but filled again with the forever glimmer of his spirit. Mom, did we? He stammered, looking up at the clear, starry sky, now shimmering, beautiful and alive. Angela fell to her knees, overwhelmed by relief, tears streaming down her cheeks. We did it, baby. We faced their darkness together. From behind them, a voice broke through the tranquility. Angela. Lily, bright-eyed and slightly confused, stepped through the stillness, bare feet crunching on the gravel. Her light laughter floated through the air like a melody, sending waves of warmth through Angela's broken heart. I'm home. Angela surged forward, wrapping her arms around Lily, the three of them collapsing in a pile. The terror melted away in that embrace. In that moment, the ghosts of the past felt lighter, fading from their lives as new tomorrows rose bright and hopeful. Together, Angela whispered, her heart full, embracing the family she thought she had lost. With lighter hearts, they turned around, ready to face whatever the world had to offer them next. The shadows had come for them, but they had wrested back the truth, fortifying their bond, knowing love outshines any darkness. But even amid the whispering winds, Angela understood the weight of what they had faced, how they had conquered if only for this moment. As dawn broke, Angela lifted her gaze to the welcoming sun, breathing deeply into a future that held hope, love, and light. No matter how deep the shadows might creep, together they would stand resolute against the encroaching dark. Now, if you've enjoyed this emotional roller coaster, you need to subscribe now to make sure you get the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button right now to feed the algorithm and show your support. And don't forget to flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories. Let me know how you felt about the ending. It's truly the moment to show your appreciation. Finally, share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to experience this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Only true fans get how important your support is to keep stories like this coming.